We're here with mountain bike royalty, Josh Bryceland. Josh got a junior world championship to his name, 3 World Cup wins, 11 podiums, and you came second at World Champs in Hafjell in 2014. A decade later, we're back. What are you doing?
What am I doing? Well, I'm stood here straddling a downhill bike, which it has been a while, but this year for Hardline, Cannondale allowed me to get this Lab71 machine back out of retirement. Bikes have come a long way and this thing was well ahead of its time. So getting back familiar with a downhill bike with modern geometry and sizing has been a really fun process and quite eye-opening what the more modern machines are capable of.
So to take a step back, before this, you were on a Cannondale Jekyll, which is their like enduro bike. So 165mm rear wheel travel, but despite that, you still rode Hardline on an enduro bike. So did you get on with that bike quite well?
I love that bike, and for me, the last V10 I owned, which was like however many models ago, that Jekyll with 29 wheels front and back and that again more modern geometry felt as capable as the older downhill bike, and the sizing has grown so much. My large Jekyll was so much bigger than my old downhill bike, which was on 27s, etc. You know, everything's growing, and with size comes stability. But at Hardline last year, a few of the bigger drops and features, I definitely knew I was on an enduro bike with triple clamps. So to return this year with a full-blown downhill bike, it was so confidence inspiring and so much nicer on my body to have that extra few mil of travel just to soak up them really big impacts.
We know this bike was from 2019, was when it was first unveiled to the public as a prototype, and we saw it had 2 shocks on it, so that was a pretty odd thing to look at. Can you tell us a bit more about that, and have you ridden it with 2 shocks on it?
I've never ridden it with 2 shocks, but they were playing around with all sorts of different suspension characteristics, and with this bike comes a whole bunch of things you can alter and play with, which I've been working my way through. I've found my happy place with it, and I've been really enjoying riding that, and my general happy place is different to my Hardline happy place. Like, I set it up differently for Hardline because of the steepness of the top of the course and how I was feeling going into the event. I wanted maximum stability and maximum safety. Okay,
so can you tell us what it's like now compared to what it was like for Hardline and what you changed?
Yeah, I changed some stuff.
Oh, it's a secret, we're not allowed to know that.
I've changed some stuff which it seems like it would be a very small change, but it makes such a big difference to the ride feel. Like the reactivity of it, it was so slow and stable for Hardline. It was like a flipping armchair. It was a good job because I was quite slow and stable as well.
Well, we saw him hit some of the features and he wasn't messing around. That's the bike as it is now, that's the frame. What are we going to see in the future? Are you allowed to tell us anything about that?
Just the next step in development. Like you said, this bike was first unveiled in 2019 and it was very ahead of its time then. From the frame side of things, that we can't go into much detail on that. There was a lot of unreleased stuff on this at Hardline, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. Well,
times.
Let's dive into the componentry. So there's some things you can't talk about, which is very exciting. It's gripping stuff. The other stuff on the bike, let's go front to back. So what wheels are you running?
These are some reserve downhill wheels with Chris King hubs. I have had this wheel set for quite some time. The things what you break and smash and thing in the quest for like being the fastest, you do break consumables on your bike, and big things become consumables because of the rate you're hitting stuff. And since I've been riding at a slightly different pace for the last while, I've had this wheel set for about 4 years and they're still intact. I've got a bond with these wheels. I mean, you know, the King hubs are hubs for life, aren't they? You can replace everything in them. And then moving up, we've got the Formula fork and brake there, going into the Bergtech cockpit. The people for me always make the company. You feel that personal relationship with, it's like, it's got an old energy of its own. You're like, yeah, this thing's got love in it, we know. You know what I mean? It's deeper than just like sticking some bits on a bike.
So you properly love this bike?
I do, I'm a big fan.
What size rotors are you running on your Formula brakes?
I've got a 220 on my front and I've got a 200 on my rear. But for me, the more power you have, the better. I don't think you can have too much power and you just become more sensitive with your fingers, don't you?
Well, it's a tiny weight penalty for a lot of extra cooling, a lot of extra power.
Exactly.
Going to the handlebars, what rise are they and what width are they?
They're full width, 800, and they're a 50mm rise. The grips add a few mil to the end, but because of a sort of taper on the end, you don't hold them out at the end, so probably is about 800.
All right, next I guess we'll look at your seat and seat post. Is that standard Berg Tech stuff?
Yeah, same again, yeah, standard Berg Tech. A lot of people like to go for that lightweight, sort of racery, sleek look, but for me, I just hate sharp edges. Like the more sharp edges you can minimise, especially between your legs. Makes sense.
Good reason for that. Yeah, okay. And then going down to the Braga pedals, the B-Rage, we saw them at Hardline but couldn't talk about them. Can you give us the down low on them?
Yeah, so the design and pedal feel is very similar to the original Mark V Penthouse flats, but they've grown front to back, so they're longer. When I had a smaller pedal, I felt like the standard Mark Vs, like on a long downhill track, when your feet chatter and you end up tired and you end up in like a worse pedal position on your foot. But with this being so big, it's kind of filling your whole forefoot. You feel so planted, such a big surface area your feet are touching the pedals on. When I first put them on, I was like, wow, that feels so different. I'm not sure I like that. And then I did a day's riding on them and I was like, they feel amazing.
Some more stability, okay.
Totally.
And the 3 pins in the middle, can you feel them when you're riding?
You can feel them, yeah. And immediately when I put my foot on this pedal, I could feel the pins and I was like, I'll take them out at some point. But I've just had such a positive experience with the grip and my feet staying in position. I thought, I'm not even going to change them because I'm just loving what they're doing. And
they're attached to a set of Hope cranks. What length are they?
Yeah, they're 155.
So super short.
Yeah, which is another thing I'm sort of moving across the board on all my bikes. I first went to it on my e-bike, put some 155 Hopes on, and I was like, wow, they feel amazing, just having your feet slightly closer together. Love them, love the feel of them.
Okay, and then looking at the drivetrain, you've got Shimano Saint, the classic.
It's a 7-speed cassette on a 11-speed Saint, but I've just ruled out the top few gears, so you can only get that far. Yeah, that bit's kind of cobbled together.
That does the job for you.
It does.
Happy days. And then tyres, you got Maxxis Ascai's front and rear.
Yeah.
Is that your go-to?
It's not been really. I usually have either a shorty in winter on the front or full minions. But I found at Hardline this was like quite a nice intermediate when we were dealing with the greasy rocks. The minion didn't feel quite right and it felt too greasy for the shorty, and then I put these on and then I just stuck with them and I really enjoyed them.
We have to talk about your Formula suspension. So you did a great setup video recently showing how you got these forks and this shock set up for you. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
The Nebula Air Shock is a new shock. The valves in all of the forks across the board, from the Selva to the Nero and the Belva, all 3 of the Formula forks, they have a CTS valve, which is your own way of tuning your compression. And it's like different valves let a different rate of oil flow through, etc. We did a custom shim stack on the highest rate of flow valve, which was a red valve. I came to that setup just through repeating a local track I've ridden thousands of times over a few days. We just did laps and we moved around, changed bits and bobs, and like the run when I was just like, I just hit everything perfect and the bike was completely balanced. Went up, did it again, I was like, yeah, we found it.
Okay, and did you set that up with the stopwatch and going by what was the fastest time or by what felt good to you?
I used a stopwatch to check my own riding, and like I was able to just repeat the time, but like feel the bike change its characteristics. So yeah, it was a really fun process, and I hadn't done anything like that for quite some time. And you know, it's like golfing, like hit a big swing and you can get it miles, but then like tuning the last bit, it's like tiny incremental changes on the fork, and that like really brought it together.
So you got the bike where you're really happy with it now. What's next for you? What is your plan for the future?
Potentially the end of this year I'm going to try and get myself some UCI points, and I don't think I'll be able to get enough to race a World Cup in one event. I think it'll take me a few stabs, and then try and do both the Hardline, Tasmania and Wales if they'll have me, and then maybe try and make an appearance at a World Cup later in the year.
So that's super exciting. So watch out for Josh Bryceland at a World Cup coming soon. Josh, thanks very much for joining us. And if you guys want to see what Josh's setup was at Red Bull Hardline, click the link here.